come there newly. All right, anyway, this is a discussion, sorry, I can go into, absolutely, I'd love to, but then we can't do and hopefully there'll be more time. This is the usual, very common and very important discussion, but we'll have to leave it a little bit for now. All right, this discussion, like if no one there, like we always have to have a mind. But that assumes there's an objective world. You're assuming already an objective world. On that premise of an objective world, you're asking, do you always need a mind? No, of course not, because it's objectively there, you don't need it. But a subjective world, for that you need a mind.
So, just to be clear, is my mind existent? Because if I need to
exists, of course.
If I need to see the mind, like to perceive it, because that's what I do when I meditate, there's my thoughts and it's meditating. So,
does it exist?
Exists only because I perceive. I think it's a good one.
Does it exist because there's some mind that perceives it? Yes, it only exists because there's a mind that perceives it. So even your own mind only exists. But you know, you're doing this thing like you starting off with not refuting, but trying to establish how it does exist. This is a natural tendency. Yeah. Instead of negating as would be helpful, can I find, right? And I do the same thing. I mean, I do it as part of the lesson. How does it exist? I address how it exists. So this is our difficulty only because we're thinking of something inherently existent and then try to think how it could be merely imputed. Something inherently existent is not merely imputed. So your basis is not a tree that lacks inherent existence and that exists because it really is merely labeled. No, your basis is already something that exists truly. This is why we start off with like negating, not finding something, and based on that, we then try to think of that non-inherently existent thing as merely labeled. So it's almost more helpful to think of something that doesn't exist and is merely labeled. It's almost better than trying to combine, because there's a contradiction there. If it exists inherently, it cannot be merely labeled. You don't need to label it. It doesn't need anyone to prove it that. It already is. Okay? Which is why when you face that difficulty, and I'm not saying don't do what you do, just remind yourself, I haven't negated enough. I bring the whole package of inherent existence with the tree, with everything, and of course it doesn't make sense to say it's merely labeled. Then it exists objectively and no one is around to see it. I don't need anyone to see it. It's there. Does that make sense? And trust me, I say this because I know from my own experience. I've been trained in saying the right thing, but it doesn't mean I feel the right thing. I can see myself, you say something and I go, oh my God, yeah. It's just because I've been trained, right? It's almost like I have to click my mind into that mode a little bit, but my everyday mode is just like, you know, inherent existence everywhere. I'm so used to it. It's a different type of mind altogether. You click into a different space, and the more you meditate on it. So for me, like if I spend a lot of time with this text, just as part of this, my mind is in a different mode. And the moment I leave the text, it goes click back into existence. Right?
So how do you meditate on it?
Why? Got it?
How do you meditate on it?
All right, we'll find out. Let's do meditation on it. But let me just get to the part where we got to. So, since there's no grasping, whether mistaken or correct, who is in error, who's not in error. So here saying that grasping itself doesn't exist inherently because it's dependent on an agent, on an object. So even the grasping cannot be found, the activity of grasping, neither the object can be found, nor the grasping can be found. So therefore the mind that is mistaken cannot be found either. Right? Because it all depends on something other than itself, which cannot be found. Does that make sense? Then, since there's no grasping, whether mistaken or correct, who's in error, who's not in error? So inherently, we can't say this person is intrinsically right or wrong, because right or wrong is again totally relative. Depends on this, that, and the other. So and now 17. Did we get to 17 last year? I thought he said 17 I did, I covered, but 18 I didn't.
17 years.
Now, adding some difficulty. Adding 3 times. Past, present, and future. So confusing. Time is always confusing. I mean, on the debate ground, it's so funny when we debate time. It's like, past of the past, wait a minute. Oh, the present of the past, oh, wait a minute. It's all really difficult suddenly, because switching back and forth, time is just really hard. If you watch movies about, like, time travel, is he in the future of the past of the what? Right, it's always difficult to. So it makes it a lot harder when you apply the times, but it's necessary. So when you say someone is mistaken, okay, someone is mistaken. We say someone is wrong or a mind is mistaken. It's not only true that it has to be mistaken if it's inherently, like we're looking at, is ignorance and a misapprehension is inherently mistaken or not? So we've already heard it cannot be inherently mistaken because the table doesn't exist inherently as impermanent. If it's not inherently impermanent, then perceiving it as permanent cannot be inherently an error. Am I making sense? Right? It cannot be inherently wrong because it's not inherently permanent. If it existed inherently as a permanent, then it would be inherently wrong to say it's permanent. But that we've already established. Furthermore, we need so many to be mistaken. There are so many other factors. There's a mind, there's an object. And dependence on that, we label it mistaken. Right? So being mistaken, it's nothing intrinsic within the mind, it's just labeled. But also, with respect to time, if you are mistaken inherently, there's only 3 times that this can take place. In the past, in the present, or in the future. Right? If you do anything, you do it at a certain time. Now, if you are mistaken, if the mistake takes place in someone who was mistaken, that's one possibility. Someone who will be mistaken, or who is mistaken right now. Okay, to be mistaken, you can only be mistaken in the past, in the present, or the future. But, now looking at the time, very difficult. Look at the time. Let me make it a little bit easier for you. Past, present, and future depend on each other. Do you agree?
Yes.
If you didn't have any of the 3 times, if any of those were missing, you wouldn't have the other 3. Would you agree? If for instance there was no present, you couldn't have a past and a future. Do you agree? Now let's look for the present. When is the present?
There's no present.
The problem is when you take a present moment, each moment can be subdivided again into a former moment and a past moment, right?
Next one. Yeah, future.
Future moment and a past moment, right? And then you want to find the middle in between. But that middle in between, again, former moment, past moment. So you can never really find a present moment. So no present moment, no past, no future. Really, if you look for that, conventionally we say yes, there's past, present, and future. But we can't really find the present. And we've all agreed, without present, no past, no future. Now taking that as the basis, here, if you are mistaken, you can only be mistaken in the past, in the present, or in the future. Okay? The mistake has to take place in one of those times. Now, if you are mistaken in the past, well, past mistaken and being mistaken are not the same, right? Being past mistaken, you're already in error, you're already mistaken. So to say I'm mistaken, that kind of seems to apply. It's happening right now. That wouldn't work. Should I repeat it?
No, if you were mistaken once, one could cease to be mistaken again.
That's okay, but there's a different mistaken here. If I want to find I am mistaken, am I talking about the mistaken in the past? No, that's already happened. That's a different mistake. You can be mistaken again. But when you say again, you're already talking about 2 mistakes. But here I'm trying to find what does it mean to be mistaken? The mistaken, the past mistake is not like same mistake, right? can be mistaken again. Like, you were talking about one situation where you're wrong. The past being wrong is not that. The future means it hasn't come yet. You're not yet mistaken. If I'm mistaken in the future, by implication, that future event hasn't happened yet. So I cannot be mistaken if I'm mistaken in the future. Okay? So past and present doesn't count. But the present can be divided in a former and a later moment. And since in the past I'm not mistaken because I was mistaken in the past, and I'm not mistaken because I will be in the future, that's why I cannot even find a moment when I'm actually mistaken. Do I need to repeat that? I can see half question marks and half kind of like, yeah. Alright? I'll say it again. I'll say it again. If being mistaken really existed inherently, now only not talking about conventional one, just calling it that, but it's truly there. Okay? If that was really truly there, the way it appears to us, this person is wrong. Right? When I have that strong emotional response, wrong. I'm pretty sure there's a mistake there, and this person and the mistake are one. If that really existed the way it appears to my mind, which gives rise to my anger and resentment towards that person, etc., then I would have to find an exact moment when that person is wrong. Do you agree? It cannot be that you're wrong, but you're neither wrong in the past, present, or future. That wouldn't make sense. It's not like he went to the market, but he didn't go in the past, he didn't go in the present, he didn't go in the future. No one would agree that he went to the market if it didn't happen either in the past, present, or future. Would you agree? You agree? Pardon? This confusion is good. If it's any solace, that kind of confusion is good. I know it's kind of confusing, especially with the 3 times. But when I say, you see, even in the English language, if you want to talk about an activity, you need to determine the tense. Right? You can't get away with saying, I to go to the market. You can't say that. Why? Because you need to determine. By implication, it needs to happen either in the past, in the present, or the future. We all agree on that, don't we? Yeah. That's why you have to determine. In Hebrew, do you have the same thing? You have the same thing. It's the same thing. All right. In German too, even in Tibetan. So, therefore, it's already pretty clear it has to happen at a certain time. But only if it existed inherently. But if you look for that inherent activity, really, that cannot be found. That cannot be found in the sense that if it took place, if being mistaken, okay, I say, Kelsang is mistaken. What am I referring to? Her being mistaken in the past, that's why I say she's mistaken. Well, if I say she is mistaken, the past event, that's already taken place. So that's a different type of mistake. It cannot be that same mistake, because that's the past one, right? So, therefore, one who is already mistaken does not enter into a mistake, right? It's not entering into a mistake. So, this person is mistaken, cannot be the past event. The future hasn't come yet. It cannot be the future event, because someone who, if I refer to the future event of being mistaken, well, that is not there right now. It's not happening right now, entering into a mistake, because otherwise even a Buddha would be mistaken. Someone who right now is definitely not mistaken as a Buddha. So if being mistaken in the future would be enough to say this person is mistaken, using the present tense, then even the Buddha would be mistaken. That doesn't work. But the present tense, so the only way to say it's mistaken, I have to use the present tense. Okay, that's fine. But can't find the present. Because the present consists of 2 moments, one past moment and one future moment, and I've already established. Being mistaken right now does not refer to the past or the future. So when am I mistaken? Am I making sense? So with the past and the future, it's pretty easy. I was mistaken is not the same as I am mistaken. I will be mistaken is not the same as I am mistaken. But even the present just consists of a former moment and a later moment, and I've already established. So there's no present moment in which I'm mistaken. I can't be mistaken. And if I can't be mistaken right now, the past couldn't take place, because to be able to say I was mistaken, there must have been a moment when this took place right now. But I cannot find that moment right now. Don't want. You disagree?
It's kind of
Semantics.
like the Sufism. It annihilates everything. If there's no present, there's no past, there's no future. Complete. Nothing existed ever.
Okay, so Dahan is saying that's just kind of denying existence altogether. No, just inherent existence. Non-existence altogether. Because I'm saying if it existed inherently, it will have to be very precise, because it appears so solid and precisely, it would have to be that. If it doesn't exist inherently, merely conventionally, it works perfectly. Now, just semantics, it's not. What's your name? What's your name? Yes? Irit. Irit said, funny for me, Irit so was curly hair. I know has a curly hair. Anyway, so Irit says it's mere semantics. Very natural reaction. It's just words, right? What do you mean it's mere semantics? What has come to mind? Just playing around with the words?
I talk about non-active mistake. You speak about mistake by do something confused. And I thought, what about non-active? Not to do.
Not being active. All right.
Not be active. Is it a mistake? Maybe I'm mistaken.
Oh, sorry. No.
By not doing it.
All right,
I
wait.
think that I was there and
No, Edith, what I meant, I was not trying to establish that perceiving, grasping itself, just perceiving something as grasping, that is mistaken. I'm just saying that an activity, okay, when we think of phenomena, we think of them in many different ways. From the point of view of their objects, from the point of view of what they do with these objects, from the point of view of their characteristic, etc. But there is a sense that there's something within the object intrinsic in it. So usually we talk about table and cars, etc. What about activities? When I say this person harms other people, it seems there's an act of harming there. There's something, a true harm that's happening there. Now, I can look at the harm being harmful only in relation to my opinion. I've done that. But even looking at the activity itself, it seems so clearly like an inherent harm takes place. But if it really existed as solidly as it appears to me, well, either it would have to happen, then it would have to be just as precisely as it seems to be harm, it would have to be a precise moment when it takes place. But that precise moment, since it doesn't exist inherently, since it's just labeled, that cannot be found. That's all I'm trying to say, that an activity, an action, walking for instance, here the activity is that of grasping at something in the wrong way, but even grasping at it in the right way, right? Or even standing still. That's an activity, as in like, you're doing something, you're standing still. When does that happen? Past, present, and future. So, of course it exists. Conventionally, I label, it happened in the past, present, or future. As long as it's labeled, it will make sense, merely labeled. But the moment I feel it's exactly this, it's precisely that way of looking at it in a precise way, in a solid way, I should be able to find it in a solid time. And that's what I cannot do. That's all we did. And it's not about semantics as much as saying, if something really existed truly, there should be a true past, a true present, it should be consistent, right? We have to be consistent. If it exists the way it appears, then everything has to exist in that way. And then we see the contradiction. Suddenly, nothing makes sense any longer because we switch in our mind. We don't perceive that contradiction. We believe it exists and at the same time exists inherently and it interacts with things. So there's a contradiction there. Nothing can interact if it exists inherently. It couldn't exist at all because you can't find an exact moment where it exists. But this is only talking about an inherently existing I. So what I want to do is a meditation, and the more I talk, the harder it gets to find the time to do that meditation. And I think because I have to, a few moments won't make it. So we'll start our afternoon session with a meditation. That's better because we have more time. So everything I've said so far, I've now come to the place that I finished last time. I believe you have a basis from where to work. The next chapter is actually a lot easier because none of this bizarre, or not a lot of this difficult analysis is taking place. So what I would like you to do in the meditation, as part of the meditation, and I want you to do it even in the break, is to develop a sense, again, I, because of our lack of our sense of an inherent I, is a lot worse than our sense of an inherent leg. Has a lot negative consequences because we believe the I is more precious than anyone else's. So to do what I would like you to do now in the session is to start off thinking, generating a sense of I, right? As you walk along, sometimes the sense is stronger, sometimes less strong, but to get in touch with this sense of I. Possibly if you can remember a moment when it was quite strong, when you were embarrassed, or when you were put on the spot, when someone bothered you, to kind of bring that to mind, or even just now as you walk and someone looks at you in a funny way, right? So in that moment, how does that I exist in relation to mind and body? Find it. Look for it. In relation to its mind, to mind and body. Is it part of my body? Okay, it appears strongly. Can I find it in my body? Can I find it anywhere? Is it located somewhere? In fact, sometimes when we have a strong sense of an I, we feel it's located somewhere. Where would that be? In the heart? In the head? In the belly? Not really in the elbow or the sole of your feet. No one feels that, right? Usually there's a sense it's here. But the funny thing is, there's no sense that my head is above. If it really was located here, like my head would be above, right? And the rest, so it doesn't really feel like that either. So physically, try to locate it. And then locate it, is it in the mind? Where is that I? Is it one of the minds, one of the different types of awareness? Yes?
Yeah, I felt like there are 3 different I.
3 different eyes. Great.
Yeah.
You feel there are 3 different eyes, but when you think of I in general, do you think of 1 or 3?
After you instruct us to watch and try to find it, so this is what I located, 3 different eyes.
Okay.
Generally, I don't think about it much.
Right. But think about the I that is emotionally, like just before you get angry, just before you feel attached, moments of strong attachment, definitely. Previous to that, there was a sense of I'm losing something. I cannot be happy without this. I want to be away from that person. They're harming me. Those are the times to remember that, bring that to mind, and then check. Because if it is there, if my happiness is more important than anyone else's, that I, to whom this happiness belongs, better be there. Because without that I, that cannot be mine. So, to look for it. Can I find it? Okay? In different situations. So then think, what makes the I? It's a loving I. Can you find that love? It's a passionate I. Or it's a failure. Gosh, we have this added problem. Not only do we think we are the center of the universe, we beat ourselves up. There's a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of self-deprecating ideas, etc. So on top of the sense we are the center of the universe, We were so important we can no longer fail. I hate myself because I failed. Right? Very interesting. It seems to be contradictory, but no. We can feel ourselves to be more important than everyone else, and therefore feel our failure is a lot worse than everyone else's, and can really hate ourselves for that. So find that failure. Where's that real failure? Where's the I that has failed? Where's the I? So to really look for it first, before we establish that we do exist. Of course we exist. Just do this. Just pinch yourself. Okay? All right. That would be part of, please, look for the I. Just watch the I and try to locate it and try to pinpoint it. If you find 3, great. You may end up with more or less. And we'll come together again and we'll do a guided meditation, of course, on what we've learned. So we will finally get to the point I'm meant to come to. Enjoy much. Is this a good time to
discuss in the discussion group?
How about the discussion group? Very good. What I would like you to discuss, well, exactly these ideas. Do you need anything to be there? The question, what's your name?
Tom.
Tom. Just Tom?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom, no, there's Tomaso. Okay, so Tom is saying, do you need something? What about the tree and the forest? Exactly that sense. Do you need anything? Could it be satisfactory to say that things are merely labeled without there being something? It's basically getting at that idea. Is what we're doing, is the analysis we're doing, is that mere semantics? Are we just using words here? Is it mere semantics? Or is there actually something to it? And do we really need something there? I mean, that's the most difficult things to discuss, but we'll see what you can do. Or anything that comes up. That's part of what we've done, basically. So it's very hard to give you instruction because it becomes quite unnatural, and it should be, because I believe these are 2 aspects that come up in discussions oftentimes. So if it does come up for any of you, you could take it from there, and if it's not an issue at all, you don't really connect to that, you may come up with your own idea. Okay?
Dedication by the
Dedication,
No? Short one?
a short one. Yes, let's do a dedication.
page 16. בזכות חסד זה להוסיף במהרה את מצב הבריאות מודע ולהוביל למצב זה את כל המובילים עד הכאן. בתודעת ההערה העילאית לקראת הערך שטרם נולדתי בלב, וזו שנולדה לא תתנבא ותשגה וטוב. כמו שנג'ושו יעזרו וגם סמתה בדרכו נכונה את הדברים, כפי שכך הקדיש לפעמים את פוטנציאל הזכות הזה בדרך הטובה ביותר, לעיון לעיון מופת. הקדיש את כל פעילויות השורש הזאת שלי ושל האחרים, בהקדשה שכל הכובשים וכובשים החולפים אל מעבר בשנות הזמנים, יללו הטובה ביותר. ולילי בכוחי לעסוק במעשה הפריסה והנאה.
So we'll have class again at